How's it going, fellas? Today I have a story time for you guys about the time in 7th grade where this girl kind of messed up and basically ruined her slash destroyed her life for about a month because of her parents' reaction to what she did. She was basically, her life was done for a month. Like, she couldn't do anything. It was pretty crazy. And the way the whole thing went down, in my opinion, was pretty funny and makes a pretty good story. So yeah, enjoy. Don't forget to leave a like on the video right now to claim your very own free nothing. And with that being said, let's just jump right into the story. So this all started back in 7th grade, and basically this was 7th grade science class. And during my 7th grade science class, we learned about geology a little bit. It was like a weird kind of mixture science class. We kind of did science a little weirdly at my school, but I think the first half was geology and the other half was some other kind of science. I forget exactly, but this happened during the first half of the year. So this happened during the geology sector, and the geology section wasn't just rocks. It was also about the formation, the earth, and all that kind of stuff. So volcanoes, tectonic plates. So the way that this class was kind of structured, it was basically kind of like rows of desks. Some classes that I've been in have kind of been like round table, where you kind of sit around a table and the teacher sits with you there. But this was kind of just like the rows of desks, so more like the standard classroom setup. And basically, I was in a row with some of my friends. In the first part of the class, we're able to pick who we're seated with. And then later on, the teacher realized that wasn't the greatest idea because we didn't get as much done because we did a lot of talking. But at this point in the year, which was about a month in, we're able to sit with whoever. So I ended up sitting with my friends. And then one row ahead of me, but 3 rows behind the teacher. So basically, we were 5 rows back. We weren't in the very back, but we were closer to the back. I actually did pay attention, but I was in kind of one of the back rows. But basically, 4 rows back, 1 row in front of me, basically, was 3 girls. And 2 of them, it's not as important, but we'll give the third one the name Haley because I don't know a lot of Haleys, and I don't like using names of people I know because it feels weird to me for some reason. So basically, this girl Haley and 2 of her friends were in front of me. That will become important later on in the story. By the way, this class might have been called earth science or something, not geology, because I'm thinking about it. We didn't talk as much about rocks as we did volcanoes and formation of the earth. I don't know exactly what the name is, so don't question me on that, bro. I just don't happen to remember it at the moment. But basically, about a month goes by during the time of this story, and I'm having a pretty good time. The class is not easy, but it's definitely not one of the harder classes. But at the end of the day, you do need to kind of pay attention. You do need to do your work to an extent if you want to do okay in the class. Because while it isn't that difficult of a class, similar to, I don't know, maybe a biology class, it isn't that difficult to an extent, as long as you actually put in a little bit of work, because it's mostly memorization. It's not like a math class where you can kind of, if you understand math to a bit, you can kind of free form it a little bit and kind of risk it. Or maybe an English class or something where you can not do the reading and hope for the best. This is definitely a class where you needed to kind of put in the work to memorize the names, but it wasn't a ton of work, right? It's about a month into the school year, and right now we're doing a unit on tectonic plates, and I don't really remember that much, so I can't give you that much detail. But basically, it was the different kind of plates and mantles and crusts and stuff with the earth. And we're basically talking about that. And me and my friends, I'm not going to lie to you guys, we weren't perfect students. We weren't all sitting there attentive 24/7, never spoke to each other, never ever spaced off or anything. But we were pretty good students. We paid attention most of the time. We did what needed to get done. We did the work. We put in the work. Were we the greatest? No, but we did what needed to be done. But since I sat right behind Haley and her friends, I could kind of tell pretty easily that they were not paying close enough attention. And, at the time, for all I knew, that they were studying really hard when they got back home. I could make the assumption, though, I can make a pretty reasonable assumption that that was just simply not the case. But basically, I was sitting behind Haley and her friends, and I noticed, they'd be on their phones. How you'd conceal whipping out your phone. And the thing is, if you do that once in a while during class, but you're basically paying attention, you're basically being respectful to the teacher, there really isn't a problem. I don't want to advocate for that because I know that teachers still don't like it when you do that. But at the end of the day, fellas, if you're doing well in the class and you're being respectful, if you want to whip out your phone for a second and you keep it nice and concealed and you're not distracting anyone, I don't personally see a big issue with it. But Haley and her friends were really not doing a great job in this class. I mean, you could just tell they were either on their phones, they're talking to each other, they're whispering, or, they obviously weren't paying close attention. And Haley had pretty strict parents. They had pretty high expectations for her because, they wanted to send her off to like a boarding school, like not the local high school. They wanted to send her off to one of these schools that has like, you have to apply for it. And like, it's kind of hard to get into these schools. Even before college, they wanted to have her trying to get into something hard to maybe prep her into a good college. I don't know, man. The school system's kind of difficult. But basically, Haley's parents were like super strict and they were like really, really, really wanting her to do well. And they were really worried about this stuff. So basically, we were told that we're going to have an exam / a test on all of this, and that would be worth, a decent percentage of our grade. It wasn't like this test will determine your grade. It wasn't like 50% of our grade, but it was like, I think like 10 or 15%, which, if you fail a test that is 10 or 15%, you really got to put in a ton of work for the rest of the year to kind of even that out. So it's definitely something that you want to do at least okay on. And, me and the fellas were feeling fine. Like, we thought we had this in the bag. We actually ended up doing just totally fine on it. But I was a little worried about Haley at the time. I'm going to be honest, I wasn't really thinking about that because my main concern is not how Haley's going to do, but I was at least aware. She was like obviously distracted enough that I was at least aware of what was going on, right? Like, I was at least aware. So basically, it's Friday now, and this is the review day because then we have the weekend, and then we have the test on Monday. So it's review, so I'm paying a little bit more attention just to make sure that I catch everything I missed during, the last 2 weeks or so. And the teacher's like, all right, guys, well, you have, this weekend to study. If you guys have been paying attention or at least have paid attention today and put in some effort over the weekend, I think you guys will be totally fine. And yeah, so I was totally fine. I put in some effort over the weekend. I was studying, but during one of kind of my study breaks, I didn't study the entire time. I spent it like an hour or two preparing that weekend. I ended up doing pretty well on the test, and so did my friends. But basically, I checked on my Snapchat story, and that Friday night, I saw Haley and her friends out on the town, posting on their story, just not really buckling down and studying, which at first I was like, all right, so they're hanging out Friday night. Like, that's totally okay, right? They have Saturday and Sunday to prepare for this test. But then I remember on Saturday checking the Snapchat story again and seeing that Haley and her friends were out like all day and all night. And then the same was true Sunday. So I was like, all right, so maybe like, I didn't see, look, they didn't post their entire day on Snapchat, so I had to make the assumption that maybe Haley put some time away in the mornings or at night or in between what she was posting to actually like sit down and study. But as you guys will hear, that was probably most likely not the case. So I get into class on Monday and I'm pretty prepared for the test, and we all sit down and I'm starting to work on my test. I'm going through the questions. There were a few hard ones. I'm not going to say that it was the easiest test, but I had a pretty good idea of what was going on. So like, I wasn't really struggling. I wasn't really like concerned, but I did look ahead in front of me since Haley and her friends were sitting one row ahead of me. And I noticed that like Haley kept looking at her arm for some reason. And that was a little weird. Like, you'll sometimes kind of like look at yourself, you got a bump or a scratch or something. But she was like looking at her arm again, and then she's looking at it again. And it was weird, and she was not being subtle at all. And she was being so like obvious about it that I noticed the teacher get out of his chair, and I was like, oh no, dude, no. And I'm just like pretending to focus on my test. But let me look, I was pretty far ahead. I was pretty far along in the exam, so I definitely had the time to kind of like pay attention to what was going on, but I didn't want to make it obvious, right? The teacher comes over and like instantly knows what's going on, takes like a brief look at Haley's arm and is like, I need you to come with me. And I was just like, oh no, dude, oh. So basically at the time, at the school I was going to at that time, basically the policy was if they caught you cheating, they didn't like suspend you the first time, they didn't expel you or anything, but basically you got a 0 on that assignment. And if you guys remember, this assignment was worth like 10 to 15%. So eventually Haley had to go back home and tell her parents what happened because they basically said, hey, either you tell them or we're going to tell them. And basically what happened was Haley posted on her social media accounts that she would be gone for the month, that she had no connection to the internet for the month. And let me just say that from Haley's friend's Snapchat stories, I could tell, and also what I heard was Haley was basically not allowed to see friends for an entire month, not allowed to go on the internet for an entire month, and basically for an entire month, whenever she got home, whether that be on the weekends or on the weeknights that she had to go to her room and study. Her parents were literally just like, this is like her life was, bro, her social life and like anything besides school was done for a month. It was a bit of an extreme reaction, but you had to kind of see it coming with Haley's parents, to be honest. Fellas, if you want to help me out, consider clicking on one of the 4 videos you see on screen right now, or clicking on the Storytime playlist you see on screen if you want to catch up on my older Storytime videos. YouTube really likes it when you binge watch my videos, and I really would appreciate it if you did. Obviously, subscribe if you're new to the channel with notifications on, leave a like in the video. Just click on one of the 4 videos. I'll love you forever, and thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's story, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.